Good day, everyone. My name is Gabriel T. Di Perini. I'm from Imo, Calauan, Laguna, and I'm taking up a Bachelor of Arts of Communication. And now, let us discuss about the potency of effectivity in communication. And now, let's proceed to our objectives. First, let us identify what effective communication looks like. Outline key communication principles. Emphasize the importance of a communication strategy. Understand the role journalists and media can play. Understand key principles for effective partnership with journalists and the media. And practice drafting a press release or giving an interview. Now, what are the characteristics of good communication? First, we must listen to what people say. Second, invite questions and encourage interaction. Third, be aware of people's concern. Fourth, understand words and concepts that people commonly use and use appropriately languages. Share ideas and information in ways that help people understand and correct misunderstanding. Build on what people already know. Stick to the important points. Be specific about what action to take. And lastly, motivate people what you want to need to convey. And what is communication, by the way? Communication is a process of partnership and participation that is based on two-way dialogue, where there is an interactive exchange of information, ideas, techniques, and knowledges between senders and receivers of information on an equal footing, leading to improved understanding, shared knowledge, greater consensus, and identification of possible effective action. This means that the receiver needs to listen what sender wants to give, so that this information will be effective. And now, let us tackle about the fundamentals of communication. First, we must remember this abbreviation, the A, P, and C. What is it again? A, P, and C. First, know our audience. Who are they? Second, the purposes. Why? What do you want to achieve? And third, content. What do you want to achieve? To communicate. And now let us consider these 6 critical questions. First, who? Who said it? What is the person you know? Someone famous? Or what? What did they say? Were facts presented? Where? Where did they say it? Was the place private or public? When? When did they say it? Was it during an important event? Fifth, why? Why did they say it? Were their thoughts and opinions explained? And lastly, how? How did they say it? Was it their emotion when saying it? Now let us proceed. We have to start at A. Who? What audience are we trying to reach? What do we know about them? There's something, their information need to tackle to receive. What secondary audiences are we also trying to reach? And secondly, the purposes. Was it the first again? Audiences. Second, the purpose. Why? What purpose do we have in mind? What are we trying to achieve? What do we want the audiences to do? What are our objectives? What are we trying to convey to be effective in our communication? How will we pull back people from using their words and effectivity to aim the people they want to give, they want to get? And lastly, the content. What information or messages? What content do we want to convey in order to achieve our objectives and to motivate and mobilize the audiences?
So let us proceed to looking for opportunities in a good communication. How? What communication channels or media will be most effective in doing this? What combination channels will work best? Next, when? What critical timing is involved? Are there key windows of opportunity? Are there key dates by which something needs to happen? Next, where? In what settings will our communication be used? Do we need to adapt our approach for different settings? So why do you have to develop a communication strategy? So because it moves attention from communication products like those of leaflets, posters, booklets, discussion lists, website videos, workshops, and other events. To communication processes, how interacting, networking, involving, participating, encouraging, enhancing, empowering can best be achieved. So, working with the media, what can journalists do? So, journalists can be important informed advocates on health issues. They can help you to get information across effectively. They also can simplify complex issues and relate them to people's lives. But journalists can also undermine or misinterpret your messages. So how to make effective use of the media? So we have to understand first the context of the newsroom. So know what you want to get across. Pay attention to to get it across. So we have to make our work interesting. So you also have to make it accurate and clear. So accessibility and interest are also needed. And you have to simplify the work of the journalist. And lastly, we have to cultivate personal contacts.
Today, my brothers and sisters, today I would like to continue the part which is the whole content of this, what they call this, the topic, which is the power of effectivity in communication. Now in this part, I would like to give emphasize of how technology affects family life. Technology is a powerful tool that used to connect people with communication, education, and entertainment. The influence of social media and technology affects every family in many ways. The greatest argument is whether the rapid growth of technology is positively or negatively affecting the relationships we have. Now, how parents use technology. Technology has a slightly different rule for parents than children. It's how parents use technology and social media that has significant effect on the dynamics of the family and influences the relationship between parents and children. For today, in this present life, we experience both society in using the technology in the way of communications. Now, in this part, in this topic that I give it to you, I would like to make it more basically appropriate information to make full understand our topic. Now, parents are guilty of using technology as a babysitter. Do you believe in that? They use technology as their babysitter. Now, let us answer it. Why? Now, every day in our daily lives, every day in those people we encounter, they're using technology. Even they're cooking, wearing the cell phone. Now, I have this story on, since 2 days ago. in September. Okay. Now I have this friend. He's a friend of mine since we are high school and then we get college. So he's always wearing the cell phone every day we go. We go into the SM and the restaurant and even the jeepney where he's using the cell phone, he's wearing all the cell phone, he's just pointing out of what he wants to point to, and he's not keeping out of this mobile phone on his eyes. So I asked him, why are you always wearing the cell phone wherever we go? And he just answered me this one word. He said, it's better. And how we make it better that all these hours in spending in just using this phone, it might be cause of well-founded is just for interiority expression that it is good using this mobile phone, just making hanging on, or just using the mobile phone just because of just important matter. Now, but for the toddlers and teens, that the smart devices have the endless amount of application that can be downloaded for kids of all ages to play on internet. They're using now the internet for the studies, for make it more easy way in defining their needs in their school. Now, supporting the skill development that parents are already trying to instill in them, and from easy to download free application, because parents know this, that it is more capable in using communication. Now, children at ages spent on technology, whether the time is devoted to social media, internet research, or communication, children are regularly involved with communication. And using the private and public school, they're using all the mobile phone and technologies, using the computer for their studies. Now next. And should children really get all the blame? This is the question, is how the children came off the technology and using the internet, because of some negative or positive effect of technology to them. The next is another question, which is, does the technology are harmful for education? Now, from this question, we make the conclusion of this situation in way of communication and dealing with others, interacting and receiving the information. Now, in families or the society, parents are the ones who ultimately make decisions concerning the use of technology at home. And these crucial rules have important implications for the family dynamics. The home is where children learn their values, specifically what is important in family life. Building a warm and cohesive connections are crucial not only for our own family, but for society as a whole. Now, thank you so much for listening today. Now, once again, I am Ramar Tigisolga from the MRC student of Laguna, Calabarzon, and may you God bless us all.
My topic is about how technology changed the way we communicate in our families. First, I would like to give a brief introduction on the technology. First is the telegraph in 1792. Second is the telephone in 1890. The ARPANET in 1969. Blogs and Blogger in 1999. Social network Facebook in 2003. I will give the positive and negative aspects. Certainly, these methods have revolutionized the way in which we communicate, but how has been the impact on the people who use them. Positive aspects: new ways of communication, quick easily with the big variety of formats. The user of the media has shifted from a passive role to an active role. The information is immediate. Today we can decide about the information we want, search for it, and also feed with our own knowledge. These advancements improve our daily lives. We communicate with our family or friends. We can work remotely. We can attend to a conference or receive news in real time. We can study anywhere in the world. That is the positive aspects of technology. The negative aspects of technology: a lot of information is fed to us that our mind cannot absorb. According to a study called How Facebook Affects You and Your Relationship, more and more people are getting obsessed with the internet and social networks. These affect our mood and create us stress due to information or images that publish our contacts. Like the world online games that are in nowadays. Negative aspects: sometimes people give more importance to the virtual world than to the real world. There are online games like WoW and LOL that make young people prefer to make virtual hangouts with friends rather than with friends in the real world. This factor also affects how they spend their time instead of spending it to their families. We can see how the technology affects the relationship. The second is the WhatsApp Messenger, the new application in internet. More than 1 billion people in over 180 countries use WhatsApp to stay in touch with friends and family anytime and anywhere. WhatsApp is another problematic issue according to Sherry Turkle, PhD in personality psychology at Harvard, can cause problems with a sentimental couple. The effects is if the wife or husband, because it has all your contacts can know if you get the message that they sent the last time when you were connected. This can create issues that causes the fight and jealousy of a husband or a wife using it. My conclusion is the technology is very powerful and can help us a lot, but it is necessary to use it with the head and heart, and not to forget to communicate face to face. The information technology was designed to approach people, not to replace them. Do not become obsessed with the online life. The new communication channels can exert significant control over us if we do not have clear limitations. That's all.
What is our primary goal? There are three things or words that tend to be used interchangeably or unshouldn't. What are these three? First, vocation. Second, career. Third, job. And now let's take a look about the vocation.
Vocation from the Latin word vocare or vocare, which means to call. Vocation is what you're doing in life that makes a difference for you. That builds meaning for you, that you can look back on your later years to see the impact you made on the world. Let's look at this graph. A call. Who is the one who called? It is God, and it's from God through Christ, sent to Holy Spirit to others and for others. Now, the calling is something which comes to someone and is particular to someone, which means there are 4 kinds of major vocations that we had in life. In particular, first, it is priesthood, married life, religious life, single blessedness, and the word career originates from the medieval Latin noun carreria, which means a road for vehicles. A career is usually associated with a certain occupation. And the job is an activity often regular and performed in exchange for payment for a living. Now, what is our primary call? We cannot recognize our primary call in just to look what is our career or job. We cannot recognize it, but only one can tell us what is our primary call. We must consult him because he is the only one who knows about us, because he is the one who made us and he is the one who planned for us. It is and how? Just talk to him or consult him. Because the fruit of our relation with Christ moves us to the level of our calling in work. And from the Colossians chapter 3 verse 17, and whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. He knows the number of very hairs of our head, and he knows what we are wired to do in life. From Psalm 139. And everything that we do, it is connected to God. It should be pleased God, not pleasing other. Because by segmenting this part of our life, we cut off the expression of his life to the world. However, he would by no means let us do that. He knows there are many who will never hear the gospel because they will never enter a church building. You or I may be the only representative of God they will ever encounter.
So communication make us a wider reader, a good listener. But I will talk about the calling, the God's calling. Now when we say God's calling, it is something that we hear, we perceive in our mind. And actually this is the thing that we must assure in our lives, that we must hear what God wants us to do. And how we will know our personal calling. Can we just sit and relax and think of a thing, or think that someone will tell us something to do? But as we go on in our life, and as the Bible says, as we see here that from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians, it says here that we all need to live a life worthy of the calling we have received. So everyone, every person has its calling. And in that calling, God is providing every grace in every calling. So what are we going to do to hear and to sink into our mind that calling? So we all know that in every thing that we do, God has a reason and purpose why we are called in this particular calling. So in the Bible, we can clearly see the reason and how we can respond and communicate with God. how this thing will happen if in ourselves, we cannot hear God's calling. So the first thing to do is that we must learn to appreciate our relationship to God must be perfect. And that is why, communication-wise, we must render our ears, our heart, and our mind. Now, this relationship has something to do with collaboration of ideas on how we can go on with our words, with our thoughts. So our personal calling needs a personal relationship, an intimate relationship. So in every vocation and every profession, there is a certain point that we need to respond accordingly so that we will be able to see what is our purpose, what is our calling. So let us talk about these duties of doctor. As written here, doctor responsibility is to heal every sickness by the hand of the Lord. Next, an engineer. So an engineer, his responsibility is to build firm houses from the strong foundation coming from God. You will see that in every vocation, every profession, a certain thing that includes the power of God, the hand of God. That's the one thing that God can communicate us through our works. Like this one, the families. It says here, to love one another as God loves us. Because the first thing to do the family, most specifically the parents, is to give to their child the embrace and the love of God. And you know that in every families that we will encounter, we must give them to be with them so that they may realize that they are not alone, that even we are not blood related, we can appreciate and feel the God's presence. Next thing, in a profession, a policeman. As we all know, that the policeman's duty is to protect the rights as God always protects us. So in everything that we do, in every words that we say, we must protect ourselves with awareness. In that way, we can assure that our thoughts, our words and actions are coming from the Lord. Next thing, a teacher is designed to teach. Not only academically, but maybe some sort of spirituality. And God bestowed and poured out to the teacher the grace of wisdom to teach the students, to learn, to have the knowledge about God. Because that's the way on how they can communicate to God, to know them, to know their faith, their salvation. Because nevertheless, it is the goal and the aim of the teacher to know that their child is growing in faith, in love that never lasts. Hello, what are the roles of the student? These students, and we as students, know that our duties and responsibilities to study hard. But more of that study hard, we must know what they are studying. That by the help of God, by knowing the God's presence, they will always include into their heart and mind that studying is not for studying's sake, but to study how God loved us, how God created us. Now let us go to the point of the soldier. And you all know that a soldier defends those who are abused. And we all know that logically we are abused by sins and we are conquered by sins. Naturally, when we were born, we have a sin, but God is our defender. So we must not despair or become lonely and sad of what will happen to us. We must be reminded that God is always defending us from our enemies if we trust Him and believe in Him. And going back to political issues, a lawyer should always speak of the truth. And although our mind is always thinking that a lawyer should always think the truth and speak the truth in their heart. And we all know that the only truth is God. So we must not think of any lies because we all know that God is sincere and just. God is the truth. And we are truth of His creation. So now let us go to the religious aspect and how we can get through our holiness. Like for example, the nuns. They are the ones who are the spouse of the Lord. And we all know that being a spouse, you have to build a good relationship with the Lord. United. Being a spouse is you are being attached to the Lord. You pray hard. You are aiming to be with Him until the end of your life. And lastly, the priests, the bishops, and the deacons, they are the ordained sacramentally. And they are designed to spread the message of the Lord. And you all know, guys, being a priest is not that easy. You have to think. You have to be very good. Because like an artist, they seem to be popular. Because God's presence is in them. So these things are encouraging you that profession and vocation might have that intercorrelated things. And like what God said in the Gospel of St. Matthew chapter 5 verse 8, that we are encouraging by God to become holy as our Heavenly Father is holy. To think that God is perfect. God is God of perfect love. And we all know that sometimes we think that we are worthy. But that's not the point. We are created by God to be with Him in the end. And we are encouraging, and the communication itself, given us by God, God is giving us the opportunity to bring back our souls to Him by being holy. And what is the secret of becoming holy? This is the prayer. And we all know that prayer can sustain us. Prayer should always take us on the Lord. And as it says here, that prayer, the best way on how to communicate with God, because we all know that our prayer, our sacrificial prayer, will always be a fragrance of incense to the Lord. And as we go on through our lives, our profession, our vocation, let us always think that we are doing these things, these responsibilities, not only for ourselves. Because we all know that God is calling us for a certain purpose. And if we don't see that purpose, our vocation and profession will be useless. Think of it, guys, that God is very sincere and just. He is very lovable. He will never abandon us. And yet, sometimes we commit sins forcefully. And we all know that God only can communicate us through prayer. And so, within the aspect of our lives, let us think twice and thrice before we think, we say words, and we act. We must do this accordingly to God's will. And whatever we may do, what things we may do, the power of communication to God lies on the sincerity of heart, the eagerness of heart to love God. You know that the God's calling in the power of communication lies on our personal intention with purity of intention. How are we pure in calling God's will?
Are we hesitated to do it? Are we shameful because of our sins? No, that's the way back. We must render ourselves wholly to God. We must communicate to Him perfectly. Because we all know that God is always communicating to us every day. So encourage you, as my conclusion, as what St. Padre Pio says, brothers and sisters, pray unceasingly, without hesitation nor distraction, for every purpose in hand, and that's the power of communication. Thank you and God bless.
This time, I will tackle about the steps on how to avoid miscommunication. And there are 3 parts that I am going to discuss. The first part is all about the speaker. And this is the following. Number 1, think before you speak. Thinking about your words allows you to organize your thoughts and prepare to say something meaningful, especially if you're about to have an important conversation. Make sure your words are organized so that you can say what you mean. Remember that your attitude and tune can only communicate quite a lot. Keep your focus narrow and try not to get off the topic. If you have trouble saying what you want to say, write down some bullet points to make sure you cover all you want to say. The second, get their attention. Having a person's attention means making sure they are listening and understanding the words you say. Make eye contact and check in to make sure they are listening. If the other person is distracted or in the middle of doing something else, either get their attention or try another time. If they seem distracted by other things, ask for their attention by saying, I need to make sure you understand this, or I appreciate your full attention. If the person seems distracted, say that you'll talk later when they are more available. For example, if you need to talk to someone, yet they're in the middle of something, let them know that you need to talk and want their attention. The third one is check your assumptions. You might assume that people understand what we're saying or asking them to do. However, clarify anything that the person might be unsure about. For example, if you're giving directions, clarify anything the person might need to do as prep work. You may over or underestimate the amount of knowledge or ability someone has, so it's best to ask. This is especially true if you're talking to someone from a different culture than yourself. You might assume they understand slang or other speech, but it doesn't hurt to ask. If someone looks confused, try explaining it better. The fourth one is be courteous. Being courteous in your communication means being open, honest, and kind. You don't say anything that might be passive-aggressive, sarcastic, or jabbing toward or about the person you're talking to. Focus on being friendly and saying what you mean in a way that's easily understood. If you're interrupting other people, being rude or disrespectful, you will not communicate effectively. Sarcasm is something that can be easily misunderstood. If you use sarcasm as part of your humor, make sure you indicate that you're being sarcastic by grossly exaggerating your statements. Otherwise, people might think you are mean. The fifth, for understanding. Check in with the person to make sure they have understood you. This can be as simple as saying, "Does that make sense?" or "Do you have any questions?" This gives them the opportunity to voice any concerns or problems they have. This can help people feel comfortable to ask questions or seek clarification. If you're giving directions, ask them to be repeated back to you to ensure understanding. And six is follow up. Follow up with the person you're communicating with to make sure you communicated clearly. For example, if you send an email, send another asking, "How is everything going? Do you have follow up?" Follow up with the person you're communicating with to make sure you communicated clearly. For example, if you send an email, send another asking, "How is everything going? Do you have any questions?" If you spoke to someone, ask them a day or two later. Just checking in. Everything okay? If you think you may have miscommunicated, use this time to communicate clearly and clear anything that may be confusing. Now let us proceed in the next part on how to avoid misunderstandings. And this part is for the listener. Number one, be a good listener. Understand body language. Much of communication is non-verbal. Pay attention. It can be very important. Maintain eye contact and notice any changes in your eye contact or the other person's eye contact. Notice a person's posture and facial expressions and see if there are any inconsistencies. If you do not notice differences, ask a question again or seek clarification. Number two, listen closely. Give your full attention when someone is speaking. Many people try to think about what they will say next, but stay engaged with the person who is speaking. People appreciate feeling heard and understood. And one of these best ways to do is this through actively listening. Turn your body toward them and lean in. Don't turn to distractions like cell phones and stay present with the person. Don't just hear the words the person is saying. Listen for information and how they are communicating. For example, the person's view might change when talking about something emotional or when they feel uncomfortable. The third one, avoid interrupting. If someone else is speaking, do your best not to interrupt them. Let them complete their thoughts before adding to them or saying something else. This shows that you're listening and care about what they are saying. If you tend to interrupt people often, they may feel frustrated in talking to you and may not communicate all they wish to say. Letting someone complete their thoughts means that you're fully listening and are not preoccupied with your own words. This way, they will feel more comfortable in sharing everything and won't miss something they meant to say because the conversation got sidetracked. Number four, ask questions. If anything is unclear or if there is anything that you do not quite understand, then make sure to ask a question about it. Try saying something like, would you mind clarifying what you mean by? Or, I'm not sure I understand. Can you elaborate? If the person is still talking and you don't want to interrupt them, jot the question down so that you do not forget to ask them about it. Part 3. In the part 3, I will tackle about the importance of technology to the speaker and to the listener. Communicating electronically. Number 1, organize information. If you're trying to communicate information, you need to be sure that information gets to the person effectively. For example, if you're planning an event, you need to give important details like place, time, and what people need to bring. Spell out any directions or steps people need to take and make sure the information is clear. Before you send the information or invitation, check to make sure it has all the information necessary. Number 2, use fewer words. When communicating through text or emails, use fewer words. A lengthy or wordy email can convolute what you're trying to say. For example, if you're making a request of something, get right to it and make your request. You might say why you need the request done, but don't go on and on. Simply state what you need and end email shortly after. If you tend to write lengthy emails or texts, people will likely skim them instead of reading them thoroughly. If you can't get away from your long letters, consider putting the most important things at the top. Keep in mind that it can be hard to express the tone in an email, so you might want to include images to help convey the tone. Number 3, focus on one topic. Keep the message as simple as possible. Don't ramble or go on to a lot of extra details, and avoid addressing several topics in one email. It's best to focus on one item or topic at a time instead of lots of things in one email. If you have several things to address, talk about one at a time per email. That way, the person can delete each email as they address each topic and not forget to do something or address something. Number 4, get right to the point. While it's okay to start your emails with, how are you? Or another pleasantry, don't spend too much time talking about something unrelated from what you want. 0 is on your request or information you want to share with the person. Don't dance around it or provide a lengthy lead up. Instead, get to the point of what you want to or have to say.
Now I will be discussing the means to prevent miscommunication. And before we proceed, let us know first what conflict is. Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding is the effect of those conflicts in communication. Misunderstanding creates rifts, gaps, differences. So, what is conflict? Characteristics of conflict in communication. Many people often think of conflict as a bad thing. Actually, it doesn't have to be. Conflict is natural, normal, and important. It can strengthen a relationship,
by clearing the air of grievances, making space for a deeper understanding and increased closeness. It allows us to express our own needs and in this way demonstrates concern and regard for the self. So what is that conflict anyway? First, let us consider and let us know that conflict is an expressed struggle between interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference. Second one is the conflict has to be an expressed struggle. This is more than an internal disagreement. It has to be expressed either verbally or non-verbally. Third, conflict only exists between interdependent parties. That is, there's only conflict when you and another person must rely on each other in some way. The fourth is, the next component of conflict is the perception of incompatible goals. Note that these goals are perceived as incompatible. In reality, they may or may not be. The incompatibility of goals means that one person wants one thing, while the other person wants something else. In the context of feedback and criticism, the person providing the critic wants something different from the person who has performed the action, though that action may seem perfectly acceptable to the one performing it. Fifth, conflict appears when resources are scarce. Such resources often include time, money, power, and space. When one person wants to use one or more of these resources differently than the other person, conflict may likely ensue. Sixth, conflict includes interference. This means that each of the parties attempts to prevent the other from achieving his or her goal. Such interference might include one person imposing pressure, or what we call nagging, to meet a deadline while the other person wishes to complete the task in his or her own time. So let us now proceed on how to avoid miscommunication. What are we going to do to avoid these miscommunications and misunderstanding? Miscommunications can be funny, frustrating, or upsetting. If you want to decrease miscommunications, speak clearly and remove your assumptions. Check in with the person to make sure you're understood. When communicating electronically, be clear, concise, and informative. Being a good listener can help avoid miscommunications too. When you put some effort into your conversations, you can lower your risk of miscommunicating.